Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hi everyone, welcome along to the RTE GAA Podcast. So much to chat about this week. Ciarán Whelan is going to be along with us very shortly to chat about the football. But let's start with the hurling. Jacqui Tyrrell is with us. And Jacqui, opening weekend of the Hurling Championship, was it everything you hoped it would be?
Probably not, Jacqui. I would have liked a bit more out of the Leinster round robin on Saturday. That kind of didn't really come to the party, really. The best game probably being Dublin and Antrim, but the other two games didn't really set the world alight. But by God, on Sunday, Munster Championship lit up the Hurling Championship. Talking points, black cards, yellow cards, every kind of a card going, goals galore. It was amazing day yesterday, really. So the Munster Championship has saved the bacon this weekend anyway. So it was just enthralling yesterday, just to sit back and watch all that drama unfold was just brilliant.
Yeah, it's alive and well, Rory, isn't it? I think the Munster Championship always gets a big serving, but it lived up to it yesterday.
Yeah, and I think for the next 4 weeks, it'll be the only show in town. That's the reality. I think Munster only has that little window, and hurling, which is far more important, has only a very short window to try and maximize exposure, maximize profile, maximize what exactly, you're selling the young kids. It's very important from a hurling perspective because, the game needs as much oxygen. It's an old mantra, and it's I've said this many times before, and I think for the next couple of weeks, the Munster Hurling Championship will be the only show in town. And I think yesterday, it got off to an absolutely rip-roaring start. 2 really good games for different reasons.
Yeah, well, look, let's get straight into them then. Limerick 118, Waterford 19 points. Jacqui, you mentioned cards galore, everything else it had going on in this game. I guess, look, the big ones is really, what are we going to take away from this? There's a red card for Garrod Hegarty. There's an awful lot of talk about the Seamus Flanagan incident. What are you seeing out there, and what do you expect is going to happen from all of this?
Well, I suppose from a discipline point of view, I felt Garrod Hegarty's challenge warranted a second yellow card, and he deserved that. The first one looked like was for descent to Liam Gordon, so not sure what was said. But when you start giving referees a bit of cheek, you're going to leave yourself open. The Seamus Flanagan one, it was late. I did feel it was intent there, and I felt Seamus Flanagan should have got a straight red, and I do think subsequently he will receive a ban. Barry Nash was probably a little lucky with that he didn't get a second yellow when he was late on just before that whole fracas broke out as well. But I think it would have been a bit harsh because I just think he didn't. He came a bit late and clipped, I think it was Jack Fagan. So I do expect some action to come. If you think of Will O'Donoghue got a ban after for the Tipperary game, I do feel Seamus Flanagan could be under pressure and probably could be banned. Not sure what the ban will look like, but it just didn't look good at all. And look, the slow-mo angle doesn't do him any favours, and I don't think it's fair to kind of judge him on that. But he did catch Stephen Bennett, who was in the wars yesterday.
Yeah, and look, Rory, I know from obviously you've been supervising this across the Sunday game over the years. The slow-mo angle definitely does not help anybody, but Limerick, in some cases, lots of people still saying they are living on the edge and asking for trouble here.
Asking for trouble. They have, a fairly checkered disciplinary record. There's no point saying otherwise. The facts speak for themselves between retrospective bans and sendings off. I think in terms of the Seamus Flanagan one yesterday, Jacqui, you work on rugby. I mean, you saw Freddie Stewart get a straight red card for an accidental head collision. And now that obviously was subsequently downgraded to a yellow on the basis that it was accidental. But the point is, rugby takes head-high collisions so seriously for obvious reasons, and they are very, very nervous and very paranoid about potentially class action suits coming down the line in relation to head injury assessments and concussions, and they have to take these things seriously. And I think that's why the GAA will have to act, and they'll have to act in a serious manner. And I think Seamus Flanagan will get a ban.
What about spectators coming in from the sideline, Jacqui? Because we've seen this happen in the past before, and like the GAA are going to have to draw a hard line on this kind of thing, like whether it's just limiting the amount of people who can be on the sideline or wherever it is. But like another incident of this at the weekend is exactly what they don't want for the game.
Exactly. And look, I don't know what that member of the Water, I don't know if he's a backroom, I don't know if he's county board official, what was going through his head, because it was madness what he was doing. Coming down and hitting Garrod Hegarty in the stomach, there's no place in the game for that. And like, he should get a hefty ban, and deserved. Not sure what his role is within it, but this is something that the GAA need to come down on, and come down hard, because if this is in any way not stamped over a game, it's not going to be good, because we have venues around the place where it's tight on sidelines. You think of Ennis, you think of Wexford Park. It's tight enough down there, and if you bodies flying into each other and flash points right at the sideline, and you've managers, going mental on the sideline trying to get the advantage, it's going to have to be really well policed. And I think sending a message out from the GAA, or from this character, wherever he is, has to be done to make sure that guys know that they can't breach the line and carry on like this, because it was crazy what he was at.
But Jacqui, just one point though, and Jacqui Tyrrell actually played in the 2012 All-Ireland semi-final, the famous day Lark Corbett and himself were chasing each other around Croke Park, right? And Brian Gavin got a belt of a Hurley into the nose from Tommy Walsh and got split open. Now, there's a very real sense that we're reliving this again. What happens when you take a laissez-faire approach to application of the rules is the game starts to get very frayed around the edges in terms of what players feel they can get away with and what they will attempt to get away with. And where we are now in relation to hurling looks to me like we're veering back down that road again. I think it's a dangerous road to be going down. There is a player welfare issue at stake here, but also there's a spectacle issue at stake. The amount of pulling and dragging in hurling now is worse than it ever was in football. And I think what's going to end up happening is what you saw in 2013, where referees were all pulled in and were effectively told, listen, you're going to have to tighten up here. You're going to actually have to apply the rules, because someone is going to get seriously hurt if we don't. That's not to say we're looking to take physicality out of the game, or we don't want the game to flow, or any of those types of things, because hurling will flow and the game will be always a physical game no matter what way it's refereed. But I do get that sense that we could be reaching a critical mass here, and it'll be very interesting now to see what sort of retrospective punishments come out of Croke Park on the back of it.
Look, very interesting to watch that. Let's talk about the hurling then, because I keep watching this Limerick team. There's no doubt about it. They're not at full tilt yet, right? We saw it in the league, same situation. I think Waterford will feel they left a massive opportunity go yesterday. What do you reckon of their performance overall, and what are you seeing from Limerick?
Yeah, I thought Limerick were probably average at best yesterday, considering the heights that they've scaled. I thought they probably, I was looking at some of their numbers, I wouldn't say they had such a low shot count in so long. Like their score count was down on a lot of time. You'd wonder how much did the Declan Hannington throw them and having to readjust. Some of their key men were very well marshalled. You think of Keane Lynch, you think of Garrod Hegarty, and I just felt that Waterford had a really good game plan around puck outs on both sides of it, how they pushed up and engaged with some of their key men, and how they manfully defended that middle third. And Davey did say, he said, look, he was asked before the game, what are they kind of going to focus on? And he did mention the middle third, and he said, we need to be in this game after 20 minutes. And that was the only thing. So he went after the middle third. And at times he won that level of engagement. And they probably had a couple of different ways of getting at this Limerick team as regards to ran them at times. They went very long and direct in the second half near the end of the game. Their puck-out strategy in the first half, although they didn't win possession, they stretched their two midfielders either side and went straight down the middle on Colin Dunford. They didn't win possession, but it wasn't... I suppose Limerick were picking up probably secondary ball where normally they're winning those puck-outs direct, or they're on, and it just threw them a small bit. So I see Limerick, look, essentially they won at the end of the game, and there was such a calmness and composure with the last 10 minutes that they just grinded it out. And winning dirty is such, and winning when you're not playing well is such a trait of outstanding team. And they've done that with 14 men, with their backs to the wall, with their key men out of their game. You think it, Hegarty sent off, Hannon gone, Keane Lynch not operating, and still they grinded it out. And I thought their defence was absolutely outstanding. Yes, I thought their defence actually won the game from probably coupled with Aaron Gillan and Tom Morrissey, who probably, the two Morrisseys, I think, are the most underrated hurlers in the country. So John Kiely would be delighted. Going home, great test, 2 points in the bag. He's a wooden spoon debating with him all week, and they move on to Clare next week.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that last night, Rory, as well, that John Kiely must be thrilled, because he was talking even in the aftermath of the game that everyone was saying, oh, should we have this thing won already? And, you know, he wants all the noise removed. Exactly as Jacqui says there, their best players not playing well, 14 men, everything going against them. It's the perfect start for them. Perfect.
The mad thing about it, you say their best players not playing well. Who are their best players? They have so many of them. I thought it was a mark of real champions as well. Their response after Garrod Hegarty got sent off, they scored the next 3 points with 14 players. There's 20 minutes to go. Waterford are in the game after maybe a really shaky start. I thought Waterford were going to wobble and get an absolute pasting after 20 minutes and thought the game was busted on them. And in fairness, like, they hung in there and they scrapped and fought on their backs, and fairness. But for Limerick's response to the sending off just showed so much maturity, so much resilience, and just the mark and class of real champions. And like, they can just win games in so many different ways. They were absolutely top class, good value for their win game. I suppose, as you said, it's the perfect scenario for John Kiely. You know, they didn't probably play as well as they can, and yet they still won. And plenty for them to chew on Tuesday night when they get back into training.
Yeah, for sure. Where does it leave Waterford then, Jacqui? They got to go to Cork for the next round, down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Cork will have been sitting there watching for the weekend. What kind of a position does this leave Davy Fitz in heading in for that?
Yeah, look, he's a big job this week to pick him up physically and mentally, because they put so much into that. And playing Limerick is not like playing any average team. Those hits take it out of each other. So, it's hard to pick yourself up in such a short spell of time. Look, Tyke de Burke has gone for the year, which is hugely unfortunate, but I do feel they actually adapted really well. I thought Jack Fagan and Caleb Lyons were outstanding, how they readjusted. So he has a job to pick him up. Cork will have a chance to sit back, see what they did well. And it's how they recover over the next couple of days. But there is some huge positives in it. And it's how he pulls them out, frames them, and tells them that, look, we're in a really good place here. But this is a massive game for Waterford's year this weekend for Cork. They can't really afford to lose it if they want to get into the top 3. So it'll be a test for Davy and his management, how they bounce back. But there is so many positives in it. There really is. I would expect Ozzy to start, which would be, he made a big difference when he came on.
Where, Jacqui?
Sorry?
Where would you think he'll start? Go in at 6?
I think they'll look at him at 11. I don't think Colin Dunford worked there. I thought he struggled. I think they'll start him at 11 and probably will roam around the place. I think they might maybe look to pull Ciarán Joyce out as 6. And I think he's a huge plus to have him back. I thought Desi, although he missed a few opportunities, I thought the role of kind of being inside and at times coming out, I thought it worked quite well for him. But I do think Waterford are in a lot better place than they were coming before the game, and will really, I thought they were so physical, Jacqui. I really did. And one thing about this Cork team, there's always question marks around their physicalities. Yeah, they have lovely hurlers. So I think Davy will be relishing himself. And I thought he was quite measured in what he said, is that, look, this isn't good enough for us almost. We're not into moral victories. We didn't get the 2 points today and we need to bounce back. So I think he'll be challenging the group this week. Don't leave one performance, back it up with another one, and let's go to Cork and get a win.
Yeah, for sure. Look, speaking of people smarting, then what about Clare? The maddest game of the weekend in Ennis, lads. 3-23 to Tipperary's 5-22. I mean, after 10 minutes, I was like, I actually don't even know if we can cope with any more goals. Like, it's just wild stuff. Like, if you're in Clare's position, Jacqui, what are you thinking now, facing into playing the All-Ireland champions after a wild game like that?
Look, you'd be thinking the first big thing is what they're going to do with their goalie. Are they going to leave Mafudi there? Are they going to look at Evan Quillen?
It was a tough out day, like.
Look, when you're in goal and you make a boo-boo, unfortunately there's no hiding place, and he got caught for the goal. The John Conlon thing, it was kind of a mess up between the two of them. He probably should have popped the pass maybe head height. John probably should have went with the hurl. There was a bit of a mix up there. So look, he has to make a big call there. Aidan McCarthy was a massive plus for them. How can they get Tony Kelly more into the game? I mean, Cottle Barrett did an outstanding man-marking job, so they'll probably look at maybe Limerick don't man-mark, so can they kind of move him around the place and zonally get him into the game more? So he'll have a mixed bag. There was some big positives out of it for Clare, but ultimately you can't defend and concede 5 goals in the Munster Championship and expect to win. So they did a really good job on one end with all the scores, and can probably get a bit more out of that traction with Tony Kelly. But defensively, you can't be shipping those scores, Jacqui. So that was a big, that was, you talk about kind of how tight the Munster. That was almost a 4-pointer for Tip and Clare. Lose that one, and you're really on the back foot, particularly for Clare when you have to go this Saturday. And there's only 6 days to recover and get it right when you're taking on the All-Ireland champions, who are probably absolutely seeding.
Huge boost for Tip though, Rory, wasn't it?
Massive. And I think he's getting a really good blend. I kind of fancied him going up there. Just there's a steeliness about Liam Cahill, and I think we're starting to see it. Tipperary, I actually reckon Tipperary are the one team that Jacqui played the time that Tipperary took down the famous 5 in a row, and I think Tipperary are possibly the one team that could potentially take Limerick down as well. They're still a little bit young in terms of their overall development, but what a blend of mix of youth and experience. He's got, still getting the most out of Noel McGrath. John McGrath was excellent yesterday. I think he came off early, but look, he was carrying a big injury from a long time back. So they're reminding him to a certain extent that Alan Tynan was outstanding. I think, look, Ronan Maher solid out in at fullback. I think there's much to admire about Liam Cahill's teams, and that was a huge statement win for them. I think that gives them a massive push now. If you bear in mind, this is a team that didn't win a match last year in the Munster round robin, and they've gotten off to an unbelievable start by going up to Ennis and beating Clare. So I think it's a huge positive. Everything rosy in the garden from their point of view, and they will get better. That's the scary thing for everybody else. I think they will actually improve as they go along. And Tip are back. I think that was trending on Twitter yesterday.
I love it though. One performance and suddenly they're back, Jacqui. That's the great thing about this hurling. I guess for Tipperary as well, if you think about it, right? They go to Ennis, they beat Clare, they're off for round 2, and then they have
it's lovely.
It's an unbelievable run for them, Jacqui, the way that it's set up for them too.
Yeah, it is, and the competitive nature. Sometimes you get a bit of luck with the draw and things like that. But the thing with Tip, and always, they have serious scoring forwards. Jason Ford, Jake Morris is electric. He probably only had the ball maybe 5 or 6 times yesterday, and he scores 2-4, I really like Garrod O'Connor and Brian O'Mara. You talk about new talent, and Rory touched on the blend. They have a lovely mix now of, you think the experience with the McGrath brothers, with Ronan Maher, and the new lads that are coming, and there is some stuff like Seamus Cannon. How far away is he? Barry Heffernan, is he gone for they're missing some lads as well. So the job that Liam Cahill, we knew he was a good manager, but he's just got such a tune out of this team. Down week this week, put the feet up now. But look, I suppose Liam Cahill will still be looking at. We give away 3 goals. There's areas here where we can improve and get better. Develop a nice panel there. Some good options coming off the bench. So you'd have to say it was a great day to be a Tipperary supporter yesterday. Going down to Ennis is not an easy place. And after a really good league, they've carried into championships. So it's all good for them at the minute.
Yeah, for sure. Still can't get used to watching Jason Ford with 7 on his back though, lads. I'm not having that now. Seriously. Something crazy needs to be done. Let's go to Leinster then. And look, I suppose Rory, in a way.
Do we have to?
We have to.
Before we move, Jacqui, I heard a comment from Rory that it's all going to be Munster and all that. Kilkenny are playing Galway this weekend in Nolan Park. Tell me that's not a tasty affair with Henry Shefflin coming down with Derek Ling.
Can't wait for that. Yeah.
Well, look, that is the one, because to be fair, I think even Henry will concede. Galway Wexford on Saturday just felt a little flat. I don't know, maybe it was the leech-in effect of Wexford being drained before the game, but I'm sure Henry was just glad get out of there with the win and get on to Nolan Park.
Yeah, it was. And I felt Galway were sloppy with those 2 goals in the first couple of minutes. If they hadn't conceded those goals, I think we're looking at 12, 15 points of a win here. They were utterly dominant. Wexford were so poor in lots of facets of their play. Take out maybe Liam Og, Dee O'Keefe to a certain extent, and Matthew O'Hanlon, I thought they were very, very poor. And I feel Wexford are really, really going to struggle. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make the top 3. For Galway, Henry would just be delighted with the 2 points. Evan Nyland showed up really well. They seem to have played within themselves. Like, there was a period in the second half where they rattled off those 9 points where they knew the game was over. Cottle Mannion, I think, was excellent. I felt was excellent in the second half. So it was a nice kind of game for Henry to get, but he'll know that they'll have to improve starkly coming to Kilkenny. Wexford, they just can't afford to have Leach in out of this game. Whatever about their other key guys, losing Leach in, and Wexford just aren't at the races from an attack point of view. So whatever they have to do this week to get Leachin back on the field, they just have to get him back, because he's so important to this. I was disappointed with the likes of Rory O'Connor. I just thought he might have fronted up and carried that burden a bit more and carried the fight to Galway. Didn't really see it from him, and maybe he's just missed too much of the league and is still playing catch up.
The problem for Wexford, Rory, though, is they're under pressure now, because that third spot coming out of Leinster, I guess with Dublin and Antrim drawing, they'll feel they're right in it now as well. It does leave Wexford under a bit of pressure.
A little bit of pressure, but I suppose it was it nearly always going to come down to that game between themselves and Dublin anyway? I mean, If we think back to last year, Jacqui, they had a horrendous result, and people can maybe say I'm being slightly disparaging here towards Westmeath, but they drew with Westmeath below in Cusack Park in Mullingar and still managed to get out of the round robin, so there's still plenty for Wexford to go after in this group if they can get all the bodies on the field. Damien Reck obviously missing as well was a huge blow to them, like basically you're 6 and 11. I mean, you'd rip that out of any team, and that's the heart basically gone from the side, and that's very, very difficult to cope with given the fact that they don't have a huge amount of depth to begin with. So I do think, though, if they can get all the bodies right and fit, Dublin is in round 3, if I'm not mistaken. And look, there's still a season for them to play for, but it's an uphill task from here on.
Do we know what happened with Mark Fanning? I heard that he walked off the panel. Did you hear anything on that? Or that's obviously not a good sign if that's the case, because he wasn't even in the 26th the weekend.
Yeah.
And when they got a penalty, he'd be your man to take your penalty. Obviously, him or Lee Chin, it's normally him, and he wasn't there. So it's concerning if he is walked off the panel, what the issues are there.
For sure. What about Corrigan Park then, lads? Were you surprised, Jacqui? I heard Darren Gleeson after the game saying Antrim felt they should have won it. Is it a missed opportunity for them? What's Micheál Donoghue thinking? I guess who's the happier one coming out of there?
I'd say Micheál is happier. I really do. When you're losing a game for 67 minutes and at times are dominated completely in the first half, and you get out of Corrigan Park, which you look at it and it had a feel to a first round of a league game in January, February, miserable weather up there. It was a dogfight. It was hugely competitive, very spirited performance, very poor on quality from both sides. I feel Micheál will be the happier of the two. I don't think Antrim would have had a better opportunity to get 2 points in an opening game of a round robin. So I do feel that they particularly when they dominated the game for so long, led for so long, when Dublin got the goal, it bounced back and got the next 2 points to lead by a point. So I do think, and listening to Darren, his post-match comments, he felt it as well that they left it behind it. Micheál, we will be relatively happy to get out there, and you have to take your hat off to Donald Burke, who had a tough time probably midway through the second half, missed 2 or 3 crucial frees, stepped up to some big frees after, nailed them, and got the goal at the end. So I do think Dublin will be just the happier to come out there with a point.
It seems, Rory, like we've been talking about Antrim taking a scalp and taking the next level for quite a few years, and for some reason or another they just haven't got to that pitch yet. Is there something blocking them from making that burst through? Because I think for a lot of us, we've been just waiting for them to come back.
Yeah, and I think it would be huge for the Leinster Championship if they could be slightly more competitive, given there may be possibly a challenge in there for Kilkenny and Galway, and could Antrim kind of step into that breach? But the only thing is they have I think they'll be playing Liam McCarthy Cup hurling again next year. They're in Division 1 again next year, so that's 2 years of playing top tier hurling. Now, they are still relatively young. There was an awful lot of young players sprinkled right throughout the team. I think Darren Gleeson has done an unbelievably good job. A lot of travelling for the fella, I'd imagine. But look, I think these 2 years in terms of their development will hopefully help them. You may not see their, like, one of the big issues that Antrim hurling would have always had and would have always felt is that because they're so isolated geographically, that they wouldn't have necessarily have gotten the requisite quality of game to bring their hurling on. But by being in Division 1 hurling, and hopefully we'll get a more competitive Division 1 hurling next year if they make some sort of changes to it, which needs to happen. But by playing at the top level in league and championship for this year and probably next year, I think that will bring them on again. And I think they could be in a position to maybe push the Dublins and the Wexfords and finally take, I mean, you kind of felt sorry for him in one sense after doing much of the hurling on Saturday afternoon, that they didn't maybe eke out that kind of 1 point win, because there's nothing more beautiful in GAA than that 1 point win, especially championship. So, but look, I think credit to Dublin. They didn't give up and they fought to the bitter end. And I think a draw was probably a fair result on the day in that one. But again, to go back to the point about Wexford, I mean, Dublin will still feel that their championship will probably rest on that game between the two of them. And given what happened with Wexford and Westmeath last year, I don't necessarily see Micheál Donoghue pushing any panic buttons.
Yeah, for sure. Let's finish off on Kilkenny then, Jacqui. And I guess a new era, first time without Brian Cody in 23 years. It's kind of wild, isn't it? You know, that I guess for Derek Lynn, a championship opener with a lot of pressure on his back. But what did you make of what his team delivered?
Yeah, well, look, they produced the goods. Jacqui, they were very good the weekend. They racked up a big score, 29. But look, we have to be fair. Westmeath were very poor, and there was a huge gulf in class. It was men against boys stuff, and for Joe Fortune, like it's such a tough task. Like there was so much space for Kilkenny. They were playing in second gear at times. TJ was back a full forward, clipped 4 points, nice points from play. Adrian Mullen got another 70 minutes into him. You know, and some of the new guys, David Blanchard performed really well. The news of Billy Drennan.
How serious?
Yeah.
Broken bone in his foot, Rory. So look, you're probably ruling out a majority of a Leinster round robin campaign. Paddy Deegan has a bit of a problem with cartilage as well. Not sure how long he will be. So, you know, the offset of the loss of Billy Drennan is obviously pushed on to TJ returning. So from Derek, look, he'll be just happy. Got 2 points, TJ back, 29 points on the scoreboard. Didn't pick up any injuries the weekend. Galway coming to town. They weren't taxed in any way at all. So he'll be just happy to get it. But, you know, for Westmeath, God, it was sober and looking at. Now, I will say Tommy Doyle, who was a fullback, performed admirably. Dara Edgerton, a cornerback, was excellent as well. But after that, they lacked no real tread up in the forwards, and it was challenge game stuff really. So they have a lot of work to do. They really have.
Will you have the red carpet? Will you have the red carpet rolled out for the return of the King next weekend, Jack?
Do you know, I was looking at the game, and to think that Henry will be on the sideline in Nolan Park with a Galway colour on him, it's just mad. Like, I've only ever seen Henry in either black and amber or green and white at Ballahale and Nolan Park. It's just going to be mad looking at that, you know. Like, Derek and Henry be really good friends, like, you know, would have come up to all the underage together. So they'll be at opposite sides of the line the weekend, so it's going to be very odd and strange. But you know, the last time Galway were in Kilkenny, they actually turned them over in Nolan Park, so it's going to be a cracker. Really is. Looking forward to that one the weekend.
It's going to be absolutely magic. Look, Jacqui, we'll leave it there with the hurling, but looking forward to it. Leinster Hurling Championship to take over next weekend from Munster. I hope you give us plenty.
Fingers crossed, Jacqui. So do I.
Never give in.
He hits it! It's over the bar! Oh! Holy Moses!
Brilliant. Well, let's get stuck into the football then. Ciarán Whelan is along with us, and we won't start with the Dubs. We'll leave that one sit and simmer for a little while, Ciarán. Let's start with the Connacht Championship, and I guess the big one of the day on Sunday yesterday with Galway. I mean, really laying down a fairly significant marker. A lot of people talking about them already as All-Ireland contenders. How impressed with them were you?
Yeah, Jacqui, I've been a fan of Galway all year. I think they've really built on last year. You know, they've found new players. I think Pádraig Joyce, they're building nicely as a team. I would have fancied them at the start of the year to be probably the key team to contend with Dublin and Kerry. I was impressed with them yesterday. For me, it's really about how they control the game. They're brilliant in possession. They don't give the ball away. They don't make too many mistakes. Yesterday they made 2 mistakes in the second half. Yesterday, trying to kick the ball was Paul Conroy and John Daly, and Roscommon got 1-1 in that third quarter. That was the impetus. But like, even if you look at that, you're kind of going, well, at least they were trying to kick the ball. They were trying to do something. But outside of that, they didn't. Roscommon didn't get anything else off their turnovers. They were very controlled in possession, and they turned over Roscommon. I think they got 110 off turnover Roscommon. So what I like about Galway is that they're just a smart, well set up tactical team. Like even yesterday, conceding the kickouts. Roscommon, I think, were 100% on their kickouts, but that didn't bother them. And I kind of going into the game, I was kind of nearly expecting that, because Mayo were so aggressive on the press in Castlebar that Roscommon kicked it over the press, and they were happy to go long and win ball in midfield and get at Mayo quickly, where Galway were just that little bit smarter to sit back, keep their structure and play. It was a very, very impressive. And even how they, after that first quarter, they showed a bit of resilience to be able to get back in and control the game. Now, I know the lads last night were talking about that maturity, but, I would even be, if they've been a little bit critical during that period. I think Paul Conroy took a wild shot from distance, so did Shane Walsh. They 2 wides after that period, but they really got themselves back into it. And Comer was just immense on the edge of the square. Like, you just have to, you can't but not admire his appetite, his drive. You'd want him in any team, and he kind of plays that last man. He's the last, defender, if you want to call it that. He's highest up the pitch, waiting for that turnover to get up and support. Sometimes you'd like him even to stay up a little bit higher with himself and Shane Walsh. But he was just awesome yesterday. So now Galway are in good shape. You have to fancy them strongly now for the Connacht title, I think,
Yeah. Spare a thought for poor old Lee Keegan, who had to apologise for not giving him kind of the match.
But in fairness, Jacqui, Comer was like an action hero, a superhero. Yes, I mean, diving blocks, winning kickouts, getting hands in for turnovers. Now, I know the goal was slightly fortuitous and maybe a bit of a mismatch from the Roscommon defensive perspective, given the size differential. I think it was a Davy Murray that was the guy that was picking him up at that stage, but the strength of him to just fend that off and get the shot off. I remember first coming across him. Cork were in an All-Ireland under-21 final back in 2013. It was down the Gaelic grounds and Galway won the game. And you could just see it then. I mean, you could just see this was this kid, 20 years of age, 19, 20 years of age, and you're just going, Galway have some player here. Like, what a player. Like, he has had his couple of injuries. He takes a lot of punishment, but like, what a game, what a game changer to have in your team. The one thing I would say, and I'd be very interested in Wheelo's view on this, Shane Walsh, discuss.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Rory.
Interesting is a nice way of phrasing it, Whelan.
Yeah, like you're looking at him yesterday, and at times he's drifting around the middle, he's drifting back, and he's not really contributing much defensively, right? And you're kind of going, would he be much better off? Because what Roscommon were trying to do in the first half was similar to the Mayo game. They were trying to get their runners in the back door, and David Murray's coming forward and stuff like that. And you were kind of going, what is Shane Walsh offering them? Should he be hold them higher up the pitch, keep a Roscommon defender back a little bit further? But even when Galway were attacking, he's very much out on the sideline. He's looking to pick up that ball out on the sideline, and it's very difficult for him to take on, as much as talented as he is, to take on a guy and have an impact. You just wonder, would he be a lot more dangerous getting on balls around the D? The positions he's picking up balls, sometimes you know, particularly in the modern game, it's very, very challenging for him, But I thought, going back to Comer, Roy, I thought when you look at that goal chance that he got on the counter, right, and it was saved, right? Now, normally, a guy, if you're going through and you missed, it's a bit of a dint in your mentality, but his composure to just stay calm, pick up the ball, came back out in the loop, kicked it over the bar, tough score. Like it didn't phase him at all. Do you know what I mean? And that's I think the difference between, you know, a lot of guys that go through, they miss that, they lose concentration for that split second. He was really composed, came back, popped it over the bar. He was excellent. But like, I think that's where Galway have to improve, Jacqui. I think is maybe just up front. They can't, if you were to have a point of finger criticism at Galway, it's that each game they're relying on, you know, like Cormac carried them yesterday. Do you know what I mean? Matthew Tierney carried them in a few league games. He's been.
I wonder, Wheelo, like if you played a full forward, if you played a full forward line of Ian Burke, Comer, and Rob.
Yeah, Burke was brilliant yesterday.
Yeah, if you played a full forward line of Burke, Comer, and Rob Finnerty, would that give the Galway inside line a little bit better balance in terms of what each of those three players bring? Now, and I'm not saying that you drop Shane Walsh, right? Yeah. But I found Walsh's performance. If I was a Galway supporter or in part of the Galway management team, I would have found it quite frustrating watching him yesterday.
But you could play, like, you want him at the top of the D, you want him in the danger area. I think, what does Burke offer you? Burke offers you that little, he's a smart player, a little small pass, he'll open up defences by laying it off, he's unselfish. Where Finnerty offers you that one coming in on the loop to kick off his left foot, you know. But I go back to Rory, I think if you Galway are in a lot of games are relying for one or two guys in the forwards to carry them, then possibly need to get a little bit more collectively out of their front six, you know, to get to the level they're going to need later on in the year. But like, listen, very controlled performance, Jacqui. They were really good, really good.
Yeah, they were great to watch, and a Connacht final to look forward to. Sligo as well, obviously. Look, I think getting over New York, Rory, for a lot of people. Look, I suppose after the elation of everybody celebrating that New York victory, it was always going to be a difficult challenge, but you can't sort of not give the credit to Sligo either for what they've done, because their underage success, the way they've built, the brilliant scenes they've already had in Croke Park this year, it's enormous for them to get Sam Maguire football and a Connacht final as well.
Huge progress for them. I thought it was just the difference really was between two teams. One team that plays a lot of league football and has played lots of games, and against a team that has only played one match really the whole year. And it was just a massive gulf in class. But Sligo have some good players. I think it might be slightly more competitive. I don't see Galway winning the kind of final by 20 points. Because in Carabine scored there, Wheelo, and you picked up on it on the analysis on Saturday night, which I thought was great. The one where he flicked it up into his hands with one foot and then kicked it over the bar with the other. The two goals they came from were just bomb kickouts over the top. Pat Spillane, I think Junior, was really, he's been a great addition in terms of the athleticism that he brings. And obviously they're on the crest of a wave from their underage success. So look, I think they'll go into the Connacht final. It's a free hit. They've got their Sam Maguire Cup football secured for the year, which is again another mark of progress on the back of a brilliant promotion. So I think things are really trending in the right way from a Sligo perspective, and they've plenty of football yet to look forward to.
Yeah. Look, I think that'll be a great day out. What about Ulster then, Ciarán? When you look at, I guess Armagh, for a lot of people, have been a bit of an enigma. You know, 2008 last Ulster title, it feels to a lot of people like they should have won more than what they have. So does this current squad have the capacity to be able to deliver an Ulster title and maybe have a tilt at getting into that kind of last four in All Ireland? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I definitely think they have a good tilt now at Ulster. I would fancy them to beat down at the weekend, and then
we need them to beat down.
Yeah, well, you two do anyway. You know what I mean?
We need them to beat. We'll all have our orange jerseys on for that one.
I was concerned at the start of this podcast. This was a bit of a Cork ambush.
Cork people are feeling under serious pressure.
Getting nervy.
But no, I do, Jacqui. I fancy them to get to an Ulster final. And the biggest thing for me on Saturday was, I think there was definitely a huge hunger and desire, and I think I think an Ulster title is really on top of their wish list, because I think this has been a criticism that's been thrown at them for a long time, and particularly Ciarán McGeeney. And there was a huge difference in just that work ethic and desire between Armagh and Cavan. Cavan were so disappointing, and you could see what it meant to Armagh. But listen, they began to get the balance of their play right again. You know, Turbot has been brilliant inside in the absence of Irene O'Neill. Rory Grugan, you know, you can see is trying to pull the strings there. That they definitely had invested a lot of time into trying to get that kick pass into the scoring zone, not to be as rigid as they were in the league. They were still quite solid defensively. Cavan struggled to break them down. They will be disappointed that they lost their way for the last 20 minutes, and they particularly lost their way in the middle of the field, and Cavan really took over, and that again is probably the criticism that you'd have of Armagh, is that, you know, there was a chance there to bury Cavan, put them away, and Armagh, they leave teams in the game, they let teams hang in there, and they always give their opposition teams a 15-20 minute period, and that's the bit that they need to get better and improve. But you can definitely see they have a drive to win Ulster, and they're not going to be far off it. As I said, Down's performance yesterday, you have to hand it to Conor Laverty in terms of where he's brought them. You know, this time last year they're in the doldrums, a relatively new team, but you can see from a conditioning perspective and even physically, probably 2-3 years behind some of the other teams in Ulster. Like, lovely footballers up front, Pat Havern, Ryan Johnson, Liam Kerr, all very comfortable in possession, and they were excellent yesterday in pulling a real terrible Donegal team apart. But I think Down are still on a development curve for me, and Armagh, that experience even of playing Division 1 will just be too much. Do you know what I mean? Even though, like, Down can take so much from yesterday, brilliant performance, but for me, Armagh are one of the contenders for Ulster, absolutely.
I think that's the interesting thing though, Rory, because Down won't go away the way that Cavan did. Like, Down will stay right in the fight. You see the way that they play. They've got a great running game. I think that's going to be tight between them and Armagh. And I do think you're right, for Cork people, they will be watching with their hands behind their in front of their faces for sure.
Big time. They've had very good success at underage level Down. They've had a couple of under-20 Ulster titles. Obviously, the Kilcoo contingent are back in the fold in a big way. That's a massive bonus. Laverty obviously would have close connections as this club, so that was always going to happen. And I think, to be fair to James McCartan and any of the Down managements that have gone before, they didn't really have a full deck to pick from. There seems to be a lot more harmony in the county now. They've always got brilliant footballers. These Down for me are real blue blood traditionalists. I mean, you're talking about a county that took Sam Maguire back over the border for the first time, won 2 All-Irelands in the early 90s when they were killing fields and so difficult to win. There were so many different teams contending, and produced some of the greatest players we've ever seen. So the tradition of skillful Gaelic footballers will always be there. I think Wheelo's point is absolutely spot on though. It's just physically, in terms of their development, they might be slightly behind the curve. And I think that might be ultimately where they come up short against an Armagh team that's a good bit ahead actually, in terms of where they are from a conditioning perspective. But it'll be tight. I still think though, from Armagh's perspective, the opportunity now to make it to an Ulster final for the first time in 15 years surely won't be thrown away. But I was really, really disappointed with Cavan. I mean, Cavan's season was on the line. Cavan knew going into this game, if we don't win, we're playing Tally Cup again, right? So their first half performance, they're at home. They have had a very good league campaign. They have ticked loads of the different types of boxes. They've got a really good spread now right throughout the team, good forwards, midfield, back. They've got all the component parts that you would wish for to go in at home and pull off what might be considered an upset. And the first half, they were just so flat. It was very, very disappointing from them. I know they rallied a little bit, but I think when you're 7 points down, modern intercounty Gaelic football, very, very hard to turn that around in 35 minutes. And the worry, I would say, is, like, can Mickey Graham convince his players, listen, lads, we're going to have another rattle off the Tally Cup. Like, will you all hang around for another summer? Or will lads decide, do you know what, look, we had to go at that last year. We might just go to America this time round.
Depends where Mickey Graham's at, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if he's going to continue, if where his ambitions for next year, they're up in Division 2. He's won an Ulster Championship. He's with them now. I don't know. He's probably one of the longest serving managers in the game.
Yeah, it could be 5 or 6 years there.
5 or 6 years with them. And whether, you know, if word was to get out that there was going to be a change, or he was thinking of moving on, that could have a detrimental effect on their Tailteann Cup. But if not, you would still, they've enough quality. Like, as you say, they were hugely disappointing. Like Donegal. Listen, Donegal were, you know, when you look at Donegal, they got that goal and the counter attack from a mistake early doors, and after that, like, there was a little bit of a surge maybe in the third quarter. Oisín Gallen came on and they got Whelan kicked a few scores. They looked like they were getting back into it, but like, I saw the last round of the league, their body language against Roscommon was shocking. And even yesterday, from a Donegal perspective, you could see it was like, it's very easy to pick out when you can see fellas are there, but they're not really there, and they're not playing to the level of intensity and not working as hard. And once one or two take their foot off the pedal, it just collapses around them. And there was particularly in that last 15 minutes, like, down cut through them, there's a few easy passes over the top, and you could see there was a lack of desire there. So they've still have to go into the group system, but
pot 4. They'll be I'd say it'll be most people's fancies.
Yeah.
Pot 4 coming out of pot 4.
And I do think as well, you kind of get what you deserve though, lads. Like, you know, like Donegal have not, it has been a slow trajectory going one way for the last while. And same with, like, you're listening to Colin O'Rourke yesterday talking about Meath going into the Tailteann Cup. You're talking about Cavan. Like, at some point you have to kind of go, well, this is self-created and you need to get yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's very, very hard, Jacqui, when momentum is going against the team, and the spirit is broken and the confidence is down in the camp and training is difficult. And listen, it happens 3 or 4 teams every year. Look at down last year, and you know, that's losing games, no matter how you lose them. Sometimes the manner of the loss can be different if, you know, if there's been a bit of fight and a bit of desire there. But it's really, really difficult for those teams to really, okay, Meath have a chance to recover. It's a massive dint in their pride to be in the Tailteann Cup. That's not where Meath supporters see Meath football. They've always dined at the top table, so it's a dint in their pride. But maybe they just got to go and bloody win the thing now and try. Is
that what you think they'll do, Ciarán? Do you think they'll have a right go of trying to win that?
Yeah, I think they have to. I think they have to, and I think from players.
I don't think they will, though. Do you think they will win it? Do you think
no,
they
can? No, I don't. I don't think they'll win it. I think, but I
send that to Colin O'Rourke.
No, like, in current form, they're not going to win it, but they could still. They have a few weeks now to get themselves back, but absolutely they have to. I think they have to knuckle down and try give it a good cut, because if they don't, you know, that's what sort of response is that to your county? Do you know what I mean? They have to keep fighting to the very end. And yesterday's result was extremely disappointing. I when I saw the Meath team named and like Keoghan was back in it, I was looking at their forward line and their midfield, and I was thinking, yeah, Meath should have enough here. But it was a massively disappointing performance. They were 1-4 to a point down and ended up chasing the game. But it sounds of things, we obviously didn't get to see that game. But massively disappointing. But like, similar for Donegal, they've to go, as you say, they've to go into that group system now, and they're missing. Listen, the quality that they're missing, you know, in terms of the guys that are injured, you know, you can't replace that. So it is difficult. And when you looked at the Donegal starting 15, and you looked at the bench, and you compare it to last year, you know, Donegal would have always had 21, 22 kind of quality players, and they had that bit of depth. That just wasn't there yesterday. They were flying on the seat of their pants, kind of with bare 15, 16 guys that they can kind of back. But yeah, it's a long road back for them.
Yeah, for sure. Look, let's chat about Kerry and Dublin. I can't let it go this long without mentioning either of them. But Kerry, first of all, Ciarán, right? Jack O'Connor is talking about it. Look, it's not his fault that they haven't been tested so far. What about Clare in a Munster final? Because there's no doubt about it, that's a massive story for Colm Collins and what he's managed to do to get them into a Munster final. How much of a game can they give Kerry? And what sort of approach do you expect Jack O'Connor to take in a Munster final up against Clare?
Well, he'll treat them as he always does. You know, he'll treat them with respect, and you have to. I suppose history kind of tells you, Jacqui, that Clare have struggled against Kerry in the Munster Championship when they've come up against them, and I think one of the things we saw over the weekend was there is a significant gap, I think, between the top teams and teams that are operating at Division 3, and even though Clare were operating at Division 2, and that's what will stand them. They have some quality, absolute top quality forwards, you know. Emmett McMahon, Keelan Sexton was brilliant. You know, Owen Cleary. So they have that's to their advantage, really, that they have guys that can score. They have a solid structure. The back that Colin Collins is implemented. So they will definitely ask a lot more questions to Kerry than, you know, got the other night. But I still think, you know, there's still a gap probably in class. And the one thing about Clare is they raise their game when they're up against the better teams, but sometimes they can go back to the pack when they're playing against the weaker teams. Do you know what I mean? Limerick went a point up with 10-15 minutes to go, and you're like, Clare ended up in a dogfight, and they showed character, in fairness, to dig it out to kick the last like 3 or 4 scores of the game to pull away. Limerick had a brilliant goal chance. So I think, you know, it's not going to be easy. Kerry were so comfortable the other night. It was an absolute. I said it on Saturday night. It was an absolute snore fest. You could hear people talking in the stadium. The people weren't even watching the game. It was they just picked them apart. They obviously, Tipperary invested a lot of energy in closing down Clifford. They managed to keep him quiet, but forgot there was 14 other players or 13 other outfield players on the field, and they just picked them off easily. So no, I think, listen, it's Clare hugely successful in that they've solidified their place. They're in a provincial final. They're seed 2, you know, which is, you know, and I think that's one thing. Sligo and Clare going in as seed 2 is a great opportunity for them. But Kerry, I think, will still have too much in that Munster final. I can't see them asking any real questions of Kerry, if I'm being honest.
And funny enough, Jacqui, I actually think Clare will give Kerry a better game than Cork would have.
Yeah,
I do. I think Clare will give them. It's Colin Collins' first Munster final in all the years that he's been there, and
Rory, you must be going soft. The eternal Cork optimism. Every Munster final for the last 15 years, you're saying we're going to win it. We're going to win it.
I'm beaten dead from the optimism. You know, what does it say? The hope that kills you, Whelan. Like I'm just not. Those days are over now. Unfortunately, we've just accepted fate. But no, I do actually think like Whelan mentioned, some of the players they have. The venue, I think that's just a bit of a misnomer.
Yeah, do you think there's any shot of that going to Ennis? Because it would be a magnificent occasion.
Well, it would be a brilliant occasion.
What is the agreement, guys? Or what is it?
It's neutral. Yeah.
Neutral. Okay, and that's set.
Well, I think when it
was Cork and Kerry, it's a
they have a home and away agreement, yeah. But I mean, what's to stop the two counties from entering into a home and away agreement now and just tossing for venue? At least you have a 50% chance of it being in Cusack Park. It would be a brilliant occasion. It'd be a fantastic atmosphere. The Gaelic grounds, I think, when there's a small crowd in the Gaelic grounds, great stadium and all that it is, I think a small crowd just makes that place. It's such a big hulk of a stadium. It makes it lacking in somewhat, like, so it wouldn't necessarily make the kind of spectacle that maybe this game might give us had it been played up in Cusack Park in Ennis. But I do actually think they'll give a really, really good account of themselves. Like, they're always underestimated. They're always dismissed. Oh, it's Clare. Oh, like there's always this patronizing chatter about them. I mean, I was there the night that they should have beaten Dublin. Now, I know Dublin probably did all of those things and took them a little bit for granted. But they should have beaten Dublin in Croke Park. Think about that. And this is a team that, okay, they won't beat Kerry, but I do think it'll be more competitive than people give them credit for.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Finish off then with Leinster. And look, I don't think the Dubs will have learned an awful lot, Ciarán, and it does seem like their march towards a Leinster title is going to be quite the procession. But some other brilliant stories in there as well. Like Offaly, you have to give them enormous credit for what they managed to do. And look, maybe they're not going to win a Leinster title, but I do think bubbling under the surface beneath what Dublin are doing, there are some good stories in Leinster.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you saw what it meant to the Offaly players yesterday after the match, and particularly thinking of Liam Cairns, look, that he certainly would have been looking down on them, proud of them yesterday. And then you look at Louth as well, and to be 8 points down, I think half time, a goal just before half time. And I thought Mickey Hart was interesting. I think when he was interviewed yesterday, he said that he kind of nearly essentially said that the goal probably put Westmeath into their comfort zone a small bit. And if there had been a 4 or 5 point game, they might have been a little bit more focused at half time. And Mickey Hart is the expert at turning around, deficits at half time, and that was an incredible comeback by Louth. And you've got a brilliant Leinster semi-final next week in Offaly and Louth, a very novel pairing.
So novel.
Both of them, building great momentum. There's a slight worry in that whoever wins it, has to face Dublin, and that can take all the energy and bubble out. If you come against Dublin, you take a bit of a beating in a Leinster final. That can take a lot of energy out of the team going into.
You'd still take it though, Ciarán, wouldn't you?
They will. They absolutely.
Yeah.
100% about go for it, but it's just and certainly they'll both want to get to that point. But it's just, listen, is it one of the Leinster football gets a lot of criticism, but you see brilliant games like yesterday, but Dublin are just still so far ahead of everybody that it takes that little bit of excitement out of it. I think, Jacqui, I think we can't kind of deny that. And Dublin, obviously, Laois were very poor yesterday. You can read very little into it from a Dublin perspective. They were ruthless in that first. They made a couple of mistakes at the start of the match and then went 2-3, 2-4 to a point up. It was game over. Okay, they lost their way and conceded a couple of goals, but and they'll probably look at that aspect of it, but it was just an absolute rout. And again, similar to the Kerry game, you just can't take anything from it. But yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Great excitement in Leinster, but one team still well ahead of the pack. That's it.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Rory, isn't it? We can celebrate all these great stories, but we still know exactly what's going to happen in Leinster. That's the difficulty with it.
Yeah, I thought someone had given the Dubs Hurleys when I saw the scoreline. Four goals and 30 points. It was extraordinary. And we'll all have our Louth jerseys on as well next week, Jacqui, I'm sure. We'll have that red jersey on as well. We'll be cheering on Louth in a big way. But yeah, it is an interesting point, Jacqui, you make in that it's a little bit of a curate's egg. I mean, you go and you win this Leinster semi-final. Is it going to be of a huge benefit to go into a Leinster final for Mickey Hart, knowing what they're facing? I think, though, to a certain extent,
Mickey Hart would love it. He'd love it.
Yeah, and they've already played each other in the league in Croke Park, and I think he'll definitely embrace that. He'll see that as an opportunity to put more experience into this team, and then that sets them fair for having a real cut, because C2 will obviously, you'd hope from their point of view, make their group stages a little bit easier, because I would see Louth potentially targeting certainly last 12 and maybe even last 8 finish, and I think that would be an incredible achievement for them.
Yeah, look, so much to look forward to, lads. We'll have to leave it there for today, but looking forward to another cracking weekend ahead with plenty more, and we'll be back a little bit later in the week, but a full look through for round 2 of the Hurling Championship. Looking forward to that, and plenty more football as well. Thanks a million, lads.
No bother. Thanks, Jacqui.
There's the whistle. It's over.